Angela Rayner, her of the ginger growler, turned up at a function with King Charles, dressed as an actual clown, with actual Ronald McDonald shoes on. I don't know what it is with these Labour women, like the Democrats. They have to make themselves as ugly as possible, as if to excuse the fact that no man would ever want to go anywhere near.
Katie Hopkins just went full demolition mode on Angela Rayner, and it's messier than a toddler's spaghetti dinner. You won't believe the savage burns, the unexpected twists and the chaos that unfolded. If you thought political spats were dull, think again. This verbal smackdown is like fireworks mixed with a reality TV meltdown. Stick around, because Angela Rayner might never recover from this, or will she?
7 days ago, Nick Thomas-Symonds sat in that seat, and I asked him, is the winter fuel allowance going to be reversed? And he said, no, that remains the policy. He obviously had no idea that the Prime Minister was going to scrap it on Wednesday. When did you find out?
Well, let me just be really clear. The Prime Minister didn't say we're going to scrap it. What the Prime Minister said on Wednesday is when economic conditions allow, and which we're seeing with the fastest growing economy in the G7, and we've already seen 4 interest rate cuts since the Chancellor took over.
So, Katie Hopkins has unleashed yet another verbal grenade, and this time Angela Rayner is left scrambling for cover like a squirrel in the middle of a motorway. If political carnage were an Olympic sport, Hopkins would be standing on the podium, gold medal firmly in hand, while Rayner tries desperately to remember which way is up. It's not just a spat, it's a full-on demolition job, a political roast, where the main course is Labour's own mess, and Rayner's the unwitting centrepiece of the catastrophe.
Here's the thing here. I've had a thought that fixes a lot of your problems. So, you're looking to put boots on the ground in Ukraine, specifically Kyiv. I thought, why don't you get all the people that had a Ukraine flag on their social media profile? Obviously, they had to take down their NHS one and their LGBTQ one to put up the Ukraine one. But those people, and the people who took in a Ukrainian into their homes like a little pet, you know, just for Christmas. People that are like, oh yeah, we've got one. Yeah, we've got a Ukrainian family, yeah.
Now, let's get one thing straight. Angela Rayner isn't just a Labour politician. She's become the living embodiment of that awkward family member who tries to dance at weddings but ends up knocking over the cake and everyone's drinks. Charming in theory, but in practice, a chaotic disaster nobody wants to deal with. And Katie Hopkins? Well, she's the uninvited guest with a megaphone, pointing out every embarrassing moment with gleeful precision.
Blowies. However, I have seen Angela Rayner's ginger growler. She was in charge of signage, and because she's working class, we haven't quite spelt it correctly. It's my pleasure to be here at conference. Together, we collective endeavour. Thank you.
The Labour Party, of course, is no stranger to chaos. Remember the good old days when a political party might have a clear direction or a unified message? Yeah, neither do we. Labour's been floundering like a toddler trying to ride a bike with no training wheels, wobbling dangerously, crashing into fences and somehow managing to fall off at every opportunity. And Rayner? She's the one clutching the handlebars, trying to steer but mostly just spinning the wheel in circles.
Batshit bonkers Britain, where Labour are hot out of the gates this morning saying that maybe it's not such a brilliant idea for the UK to import all of Pakistan into our country, and that majority Pakistani Muslim men mainly come here and claim asylum. Oh, do you think, Labour? What they're really trying to do here is grab the headlines. They don't want you talking about the fact that Labour got utterly trounced in the local elections and lost to Reform. Well done to everybody from Reform.
Labour's identity crisis is almost endearing, if it weren't so painfully tragic. One week they're champions of the working class, the next they're scrambling to dodge accusations of hypocrisy and internal sabotage. Rayner's role? Well, she's often the person who ends up in the spotlight when the party's internal plumbing bursts spectacularly, spraying scandal and embarrassment everywhere. It's like she's the official face of Labour's mishaps. A title no one asked her to take, but which she wears with, let's say, a certain awkward flair. If politics were a soap opera, Labour's recent chapters would be filled with betrayal, secret meetings and dramatic exits, all unfolding behind Rayner's increasingly bewildered expression. There's the financial mismanagement that somehow never gets fully cleaned up, the bullying allegations that keep popping up like unwelcome party guests, and the cronyism scandals that have the party looking less like a political force and more like an episode of Game of Thrones. Minus the dragons, just a lot more backstabbing. And here's the kicker. Rayner, positioned as a senior figure within this circus, tries to hold it all together. But watching her is like seeing someone attempt to patch a sinking ship with chewing gum. Every statement or public appearance tends to highlight the disconnect between Labour's lofty promises and the reality of their bungled attempts at leadership.
It would be great if I could be Prime Minister. I would make it such that people who wanted to make Britain great, they get help to do that, they get free parking, they get reduced taxes, they get whatever incentivises the grafters, the workers, small businesses and wealthy individuals.
Starmer is failing harder than cheap toilet paper. He can't keep his own in order at this point. He's lied about simply everything from pensions to taxation to monetary policy, and now he's going to raise council tax by 10%. He even broke rules during lockdown when he had his vocal coach over to give him some lessons, and she did a pretty poor job because he still sounds like he's got...
She talks about strong leadership, but somehow the party's direction looks more like a rudderless ship in a storm, with Rayner desperately trying to keep it afloat amid rising waves of scandal and public distrust. Speaking of scandals, the laundry list is impressive in its ability to induce facepalms. Financial mismanagement? Check. Allegations of bullying within party ranks? Double check. Cronyism and favouritism? You bet. It's a political buffet of bad decisions, and Rayner seems to be the waitress trying to serve it up while wearing an apron that's 2 sizes too small and full of holes. Every attempt at damage control comes off like rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, a spectacle doomed from the start. Enter Katie Hopkins, the no-holds-barred commentator who doesn't bother with polite political language or carefully measured critiques. Instead, she goes full throttle, using Rayner as the prime example of Labour's failure to get its act together. The sharpness of Hopkins' words isn't just meant to wound. It's designed to expose the deep, festering rot that lies beneath Labour's PR spin. Hopkins doesn't pull punches, she lands haymakers, turning Rayner's public persona into a caricature of bluster and bewilderment. Hopkins' style is a masterclass in brutal clarity.
Breaking news here in Batshit Bonkers Britain, where there's a story it seems the mainstream aren't keen to carry into this week, which is the story of the non-English speaking Ukrainian bum boy that set fire to Keir Starmer's apartment, his home, his old car and all sorts of other things. Rumour has it the bum boy was recommended to Keir by Zelensky, who'd used him often and found his services to be very enjoyable. More on that, I'm sure.
While Labour's leadership stumbles through carefully scripted statements and confused interviews, Hopkins cuts through the noise with a single sarcastic sentence that leaves no room for denial. Labour is portrayed not just as dysfunctional but laughably incompetent, with Rayner's attempts to lead seen as little more than a tragicomic sideshow. It's political theatre gone off the rails, and Hopkins is the merciless critic who refuses to applaud. And why does this all matter? Because the consequences for Labour aren't confined to just bad headlines or viral memes. The party's continual scandals and leadership gaffes drive away the very voters they need to win elections. Moderate supporters who once gave Labour the benefit of the doubt now look elsewhere. Tired of the infighting and endless controversies, Rayner, as one of Labour's public faces, carries a significant portion of the blame, whether deserved or not, because she represents a party unable to move beyond its own dysfunction. The image of Labour in the public eye is a stubborn stain, and Rayner's awkward public stumbles only add to the smudge. Instead of rallying the party around a clear vision, she inadvertently highlights Labour's inability to present a united front. Every misstep is magnified, every gaffe becomes a meme, and the scandals stack up like a bad reality show that nobody wants to binge watch but can't stop following.
We've all taken a 2.8% pay rise as agreed by the MP's pay review body.
The pay review body is independent.
Hang on a second, is that particularly working class? All those things taken together, is that
all
working
those
class?
things taken together, Tom, I've just explained to you, the winter fuel allowance people are over £400 better off because we protected the triple lock, we protected the most vulnerable. I've just explained to you the welfare and the principles and the values that we will protect those that need it and make sure that they get the support, and we've got to make sure that people can get into work. And in terms of the pay rise, MPs do not have any control over that. That is
Katie Hopkins' verbal assault on Rayner is more than just a personal attack. It's a symptom of a much larger problem. Labour's internal chaos, scandals and leadership failings create a perfect storm for critics like Hopkins to exploit. The party's attempts to patch things up feel superficial at best, as if slapping on fresh paint while the foundation crumbles underneath. And Rayner? She's stuck in the middle, trying to navigate this political minefield while the ground shifts beneath her feet. The political landscape doesn't reward confusion or weakness, and Labour's failure to clean up its act only deepens the public's scepticism. Rayner's public image, tied so closely to Labour's reputation, suffers collateral damage every time a scandal surfaces or a leadership blunder occurs. The irony is that she often seems genuinely caught off guard by the mess, as if unaware she's the designated fool person for the party's ongoing train wreck. And if you thought this was just about personal failings, think again. Labour's scandals reveal systemic problems, poor governance, toxic internal cultures, and a lack of accountability that makes even the most hardened political watchers shake their heads. Rayner, whether by design or circumstance, embodies this dysfunction. Watching her attempt to put a brave face on the chaos is like seeing a mime trapped inside an invisible box, desperate to shout but unable to break free.
Comrades, my name is Keir Starmer and I'm here to fuck the foundations. When I became your Prime Minister, not only did I get new hair and glasses provided by a donor who now has full access to 10 Downing Street and my bedroom, we were promised three things. Number one, we would be fully costed and fully funded. We're so fully funded and fully costed, we're essentially just like Katie Price or HS2 or the public sector in Argentina pre-Milei, depending on your sense of humour. In order to make the £22 billion hole in the budget even worse, we have spunked a whole bunch of cash at train drivers and junior doctors.
Meanwhile, Katie Hopkins thrives in this environment, taking every opportunity to puncture Labour's fragile bubble of respectability. Her scathing commentary acts like a political mirror, reflecting Labour's flaws with merciless accuracy. Labour's leadership stumbles make for easy targets, and Hopkins delivers every blow with the precision of a surgeon and the glee of a stand-up comedian, watching a set go perfectly. The Labour Party's decline in public confidence isn't an accident. It's the logical outcome of years of mismanagement and scandal. Rayner's awkward attempts at leadership only hasten this slide, as voters see more of the same chaos and fewer signs of real change. The party's messaging is muddled, its leadership questioned, and its scandals are headline fodder for critics ready to pounce. And so, as Labour continues to flounder, Katie Hopkins will keep sharpening her knives. Angela Rayner's public missteps and the party's scandals provide an endless supply of material for Hopkins' withering critique. The question isn't if Rayner will face more verbal takedowns, but when and how badly. Will Labour find a way to clean house before the next political season? Or will the party's internal chaos continue to unravel, with Rayner forever cast as the hapless figurehead of a sinking ship? The political world watches, popcorn in hand, as this drama unfolds, with Katie Hopkins front and centre, ready to deliver the next knockout blow.
Can the British Labour Party actually hear itself? I mean, do they not flinch at their own hypocrisy? In her Guardian column on Corbyn, Polly Toynbee asked, was there ever a more crassly inept politician than Jeremy Corbyn, whose every impulse is to make the wrong call on everything? Today, Polly can be found right there with all the other Guardian turncoats, fist-pumping the air. Oh, Jeremy Corbyn! JC and his disciples regaled the assembled unions and militant masses with tales of taxing the rich.
Because when politics becomes a circus and Labour is the clown car careening off the track, you better believe Katie Hopkins is the ringmaster, yelling "Fire!" while the chaos spreads. And Angela Rayner, she's just trying not to get trampled in the process. Ah, Katie Hopkins, never one to hold back. She's basically taken a sledgehammer to Labour's fragile political facade and then done a victory dance on the rubble. When Hopkins zeroes in on Angela Rayner, it's like watching a demolition expert showing off their skills. But instead of concrete, it's the Labour Party's carefully crafted PR veneer that gets pulverised. Labour loves to dress itself up in promises and platitudes, but Hopkins rips away that thin layer of shiny paint to reveal a rusty, creaking machine, struggling to keep from falling apart. And Rayner? She's become the unwilling poster child for this hollow posturing, the face of a party that talks big but trips over its own feet every chance it gets. Hopkins' style is a brutal mix of blunt truth-telling and razor-sharp wit. She's not interested in diplomatic phrasing or gentle critiques wrapped in flowery language. No, Hopkins prefers to slice through the political doublespeak like a hot knife through butter, leaving Labour's flimsy excuses and tired soundbites flapping in the wind. Her words hit like a punch to the gut, exposing the rot that Labour's PR teams try desperately to hide behind spin doctors and Twitter storms.
Keir Starmer now says he's the guy that's going to control our borders. The same Keir Starmer that decriminalised illegal immigration, has prioritised illegals over our own good people, has thrown them into hotels and generally prioritised them for housing as well, and wanted to make sure that anyone who spoke out against illegal immigration was called far right and put in prison. But now suddenly he's all for it. He also says that those arriving in our country should speak English. Maybe he could go to Birmingham or Bradford or Luton or Leicester or any other of his voting areas and say that, because none of them will understand a bloody word.
And unlike Labour's leadership, who often seem to stumble over their own lines, Hopkins delivers each jab with the precision and confidence of a surgeon, only she's wielding sarcasm instead of scalpels. Her metaphors are vivid and unforgettable. Imagine Labour's leadership as a circus act, but instead of juggling or tightrope walking, they're wildly swinging from one scandal to another, desperately trying not to crash into the safety net that was supposed to catch them. And Rayner? She's not the ringmaster. Oh no, she's the clown who keeps dropping the pies. Except the pies are actually political disasters, splattering all over the party's image. It's a joke nobody's laughing at, but the audience keeps watching because they just can't believe how bad it's gotten. Hopkins paints this picture with a biting irony that's as entertaining as it is devastating. Labour's top brass don't just look incompetent, they look like they've been cast in a bad sitcom that keeps getting renewed, against all logic. Now, why does all this matter? Because Rayner's public blunders and the never-ending parade of Labour scandals aren't just embarrassing mishaps, they're slowly but surely eroding the party's credibility. Every misstep feeds into a growing narrative of incompetence and bitter infighting, the kind that leaves voters shaking their heads and reaching for the remote to change the channel.
Here, my director of strategy, who's a right ginger, has said that I should explain our new policy on migration very simply. So before, we loved illegals. We couldn't get enough of illegals. Illegals, come, welcome. I helped bring them in. I put them in hotels. I also love a Rwandan. I love me a stubby Rwandan. In fact, I love all illegals because they are the ones that vote for us. So if you go to any of the Labour strongholds, Luton, Leicester, Birmingham, Bradford, all you'll find is Muslims, and we can buy their vote for 20 quid.
This isn't just a passing phase. Without serious reform, Labour risks becoming a permanent punchline in the political arena, the party everyone loves to mock, but no one takes seriously anymore. And it's not just about losing elections, though let's be honest, that's happening. It's about losing trust. Trust that the party can govern responsibly. Trust that it can manage its own house without turning every press conference into a viral meme. Trust that it's more than just an endless cycle of scandals and apologies. With Rayner front and centre as the public face, the party's decline feels personal, like watching someone try to keep a leaky boat afloat with their hands, and failing spectacularly. So, what's next? The political fallout is far from over. Labour's meltdown is a slow-motion train wreck, and the spotlight on Rayner and the party's internal chaos is only going to get brighter. Katie Hopkins will be ready, of course, wielding her verbal sledgehammer with gleeful anticipation, breaking down every new blunder with relish. The question is, can Labour clean house before it's too late? Or will they continue to spiral, becoming a permanent exhibit in the political hall of shame? The clock is ticking and the political world is watching, popcorn in hand, eager for the next act in this tragicomic saga.